When you're 5 years old, you could give rocks what other people think about you. You like your Iron Man mask, you like your Hulk gloves, and by golly, you're gonna parade through town wearing them. When we get a little older, something strange starts to happen. We begin to become paralyzed by the fear of feedback from others. Now, it's okay to have feedback. We have to have a little feedback in order to learn and to grow. But what happens if that's starting to freeze you in place? If you're not living your life fully because you're scared of the opinions of others? Here are 11 ideas I'd like you to consider as we pull you out of the swamp of fear and set you back on the path to living your life fully. Here are 11 ways in which you can overcome paralysis by fear of the opinions of others. Point number 1. This is the universe. You are here. Shivering, trembling, worrying what others might think of you. There, on that dot. You've got the better part of a century to live out your life. Of the 7 billion or so people surrounding you, only a few thousand will ever even meet you. Of those, 1 or 2, 2 or 3, 10 or 20 might hate your guts. Others will like you very much. Some may even love you, and isn't that wonderful? But most won't particularly have a thought one way or the other. And that's because they're living their own lives. They have their own fears, their own inner story that they're caught up with. As they walk down the street, they're not judging you because you're not the center of their story. They're worried about how others are perceiving them, about how their day is going, about the things that they need to do. You may or may not be a blip on their radar. How immensely silly to take the better part of a century, the story that is given to you, on this one little dot surrounded by 7 billion souls, and to be paralyzed by what they think of you. You don't need their permission to be alive. You are alive, you have a story, you therefore have permission to live. I give you permission to live if you needed to hear it. A little context can help you to realize how silly it is to feel frozen by the opinions of others. Number 2, it's not necessary for everyone to like you. What a revolutionary thought. Most people go through their lives eliciting very little reaction, one way or the other. Extreme personalities, the sort of people who become iconic, get extreme reactions. And you'll find that it's often divided equally into half the world loving them and half the world hating their guts. And they don't care because they're not for everyone. Therefore, the part that actually approves of them. It's not necessary that everyone likes you. And spoiler alert, it's never going to happen. Even the nicest people, the most productive members of society, the ones who try to live their lives very carefully, will still find that someone out there doesn't like them. Welcome to human beings. It only makes a difference if you let it stop you from living. Take the extreme personalities, the icons, the big names. Take an Elon Musk, a Ben Shapiro, a Jeremy Clarkson, a Donald Trump. The love and hate are equally intense, and they don't care. Number 3, don't give too much weight to negative feedback. You know how this works and you've caught yourself doing it. You can get 100 compliments and you get 1 item of negative feedback. What do you spend that night thinking about? 2 in the morning, it's there twisting in your gut and you're worried about that one person who didn't approve. That's not rational. If 100 people approve of what you do and 1 person dislikes you, do not focus disproportionately on the dislike. It's a very human way of reacting to things because we're looking for the threat. You don't have to live your life looking for the threat. Once you find that there is someone who doesn't like you, tell yourself that's okay. Let that person go. Carry on doing the thing that you do. Do not give disproportionate weight to negative feedback. Number 4, don't forget that others disagree with those who disagree with you. So let's take, for example, somebody shouted at me on the Facebook and they called me many, many names. Happens to everyone, happens all the time. Now, what's really going on there is you have other people in the background who are looking at that poisonous comment, them shouting at you with the many exclamation marks, and they're going, what a chop. But they won't say so because human beings don't want to wade into a confrontation. From your perspective, you might think that that person represents the village, the tribe, the people, and they have spoken. It's not true. It's one person who doesn't like you and is shouting at you. And if you look around at your world, you'll find that the consequence of that is nothing. It makes no difference. If someone is shouting at you, angry with you, doesn't like you, wants to register their displeasure with you, welcome to the human race. It happens all the time. But don't believe for 1 second that there aren't other people looking at that comment and going, honestly, what an arse. And you know what? It'll be over by tomorrow. These things blow over very quickly. Hang in there, deep breath, tomorrow's another day. Number 5. You know how you always feel just a little scared on the inside? Well, 2 of the top fears in the world are fear of public speaking, which is standing in front of other people and being judged, and fear of being discovered to be a fraud. Now consider that for just a second. If those are 2 of the most prevalent fears in the world, then it tells you that you are normal. Everyone feels them. You might look around and go, I don't see anyone else feeling them. Well, they don't see you feeling them because it happens on the inside. People learn coping mechanisms, they slowly but surely become better at things, and they get on with their lives. But don't think for 1 second that that means that your fear is utterly unique. If these things are the 2 most prevalent fears in the world, fear of standing up and being judged by others and fear of being discovered to be a fraud, then it shows you that you are in good company. You are, congratulations, a normal human being. One of us. One of us. One of us. Number 6. Feedback is optional. When I entered the Public Speaking World Championships with Toastmasters International, some very kind people gave me mentoring and helped me with the construction of my script and the practice and delivery of my presentation. But one of the wisest of them taught me something early on, which is that feedback is optional. You listen to the feedback, you hear it, you decide what you want to take on board and what you want to discard. And of course, some of it is flat out wrong. I can remember high school teachers telling me, you daydream too much and you're never going to amount to anything. Now I write novels, so Number 7. When it comes to speaking up, remember that humans are very silly. Allow me to explain. Research by the likes of Harvard Business Review, and in fact this has appeared in many business books, points out that, unfortunately, the person who takes up the most airtime in meetings is often perceived as the most credible leader. Now that's ridiculous because that person is not correct, wise, or necessarily even knowledgeable by virtue of the fact that he or she is doing the most speaking. But we are wired to perceive things that way. So folks, if you find yourself in a meeting and you're not speaking up because the other person looks so confident, is taking up so much airtime, remember that dynamic. Unless you raise your voice, that person carries on. You may actually be smarter, wiser, more knowledgeable, but no one knows that unless you raise your voice. It matters that you raise your voice. 8. There is a good system for systematically overcoming your fears. Now, this research comes from human insight into how talent works. And I love this idea. The first time I heard it, I was blown away by it. It is so simple and so easy to use. Picture yourself standing in the middle of 3 concentric circles. In other words, you're the bullseye. There is a circle around you, a bigger circle around that, a larger circle still on the outside. The circle in which you are standing is your comfort zone. Everything there is familiar, everything there is what you're used to. You're good at the comfort zone. The next level out is the growth zone. That's when you stretch yourself a little, you do something that you haven't done before, but it's safe enough to try. That's what you want to go for. The third one beyond that is the trauma zone. That's when you've never spoken in public before, and the first time you try and do it is in an auditorium in front of 1,000 people. That's when you go down to the public pool and you see someone who's never jumped off a diving board before go straight to the big one and look over the edge, and you can see the death registering in their eyes. That's too much. So what you want to do is ask yourself, what is that thing that causes you a bit of apprehension in front of others? Public speaking, performance, talking to friends, whatever the case might be. Don't set yourself the challenge to go all the way to the trauma zone in one go. It will scare you and you'll retreat to the safe zone, perhaps never to try again. Instead, give yourself a small challenge. Try 1 foot out of the comfort zone into the growth zone. And the more often you do that, the more your inner circle, the smaller one, the comfort zone, expands outward. What you want is the comfort zone to get larger and larger. It is possible. I started off as a complete introvert. I was terrified by other people. I now find it easier to stand up on a stage in front of 1,000 people and share stories and insights and embarrassing moments and vulnerabilities than I do to talk to a small group of 3 or 4 people. And that's because of the years and years of practice in public speaking, starting with a small club, going to larger audiences, getting good feedback, getting bad feedback, learning which feedback to take on. So step out of the comfort zone, just into the growth zone, and keep doing that. And that brings us on very nicely to number 9, which is frequency matters greatly. Let me give you a practical example of this one. I work as a professional speaker. If I have an unusual month in which I don't speak for an audience, the first time I get back up on that stage, my heart rate is through the roof. And it's just because I haven't done it for a while. Now, by contrast, the best weeks for me are the ones where I have one day after another, speech, 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 speech. You'd think that would be worse, but actually it's much easier. In fact, one of the best weeks of my life, I had 2 speeches on one day, flew to another city, 3 speeches the next day. By the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th speech, it's old hat. It's easy. There's something in the mind that perceives unusual events as particularly scary. So, what's the thing you're trying to master? For heaven's sake, don't do it once a month or once a year. That will be much worse. You won't sleep for 2 nights before. However, if you do it 2 or 3 times a week, you'll find that changes the entire dynamic. It's not worse, it's better. The frequency of the thing you do makes it ordinary, and you start to get into the rhythms and patterns. You even start to become strategically playful with it. I know for my speeches, for example, I'd get to the 2nd venue and think, I like the way this went, I'm going to try this now. You're not even thinking fear, you're thinking playfully. You're starting to get into the zone. Trust me on this one, more often is much better than less often. Number 10, self-talk is king. When you face fear, what do you say in your own head? What do the voices tell you? Here's the worst thing you can do. Oh no, I have to speak for 1,000 CEOs in an auditorium. Here's what you should do. I'm amazed I get to speak for 1,000 CEOs in an auditorium. This is a great opportunity. I'm going to do a good job of this because this could be a catalyst for something. I can't believe I've got this opportunity. This is wonderful. Here goes. This may sound obvious, but you listen to the voice in your head. Don't let it tell you terrible things. Reframe things as opportunity. That makes a big difference to how you approach things and your own perceptions of the fear value of that event. Number 10, be the gorilla. I want you to be the gorilla. All right, there's a psychosomatic link between your body and your brain. Worst thing you can do before a fear scenario, do small, tight, scared, scrunched up body language, because it teaches your brain that it's in a fear state and your brain responds accordingly. The opposite is true too. Go find yourself a private space, hear your own voice speak out loud. Do big gorilla movements, do Superman, be Wonder Woman, do whatever floats your boat, be an opera singer, and do these things that get you to expand into the space. In the world of public speaking, we often coach people that if you do gestures to the side, it shows that you are very fearful. Fearful people keep their hands in and gesture only to the sides. Confident people break the space in front of them. They reach forward. Reach forward on purpose. Break that open space. Do those big movements. Do it for some 5-10 minutes, moving around in grand ways, and you will feel that you start to expand into that space. It makes the world of difference. Let your voice be heard as well, if you can do it in a private setting. Obviously, just before a speech, you may have constraints based on the venue. If yours is something social, it might be constraints based on the road you're walking down. Find a place where you can privately expand and become a little more. Your body language matters. When you walk out that front door, don't walk out as a fearful, tucked-in little mouse. Stand up straight, square those shoulders, look out into the world, keep that chin up, and go for it. Please pass this on to someone who struggles with fear. And folks, frankly, that's most of us, to one degree or another. I would love them to live their lives fully and shining brightly. We were not given a spirit of fear, but one of love and of power and of a sound mind. It matters that you live your life without fear, because that's the best version of you. Go get 'em.